Welcome to another episode of Grant Rock Warehouse, and tonight BM Boldt is back. We are continuing our discussion on Frank Zappa. Tonight's victim is the One Size Fits All album from 1975. Pretty good record, I must admit. Let's get started.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome BM Boldt back to the channel. Tonight we are doing yet another episode in our Frank Zappa series. God knows how many episodes we've done, but tonight we've landed into 1975 and the album One Size Fits All. So I think based on what I know about this record, now you have to understand a lot of these records I haven't heard them because I was a big, if you've looked at the older episodes, I'm a big Mothers of Invention fan. Yeah, I know this is the Mothers of Invention, but I'm talking about the original. And I love that stuff. And this stuff's a little bit different. Yeah, we're in the 70s. I get it. No big deal. A lot of people love this stuff. But we're going to get into it and see how we rate it. We'll both rank it out of 10 and see if this is a record that we would recommend for you to get into. So, Mr. B.M. Boldt, thank you for coming. Nice to see you again. We'll be 100 years old by the time we're done doing this show. Anyway, thoughts on One Size Fits All?
I did a little checking, and I think Frank, he released about 60 or so albums when he was alive. I think we're up to 20 now. Probably. So we're about a third of the way through his discography when he was alive. I don't know if we'll ever get to the posthumous stuff, but yeah, I mean, we're almost 2 years into this, and we're about a third of the way through. So I don't know, maybe we'll be able to knock it out in 5 years.
We could start doubling up.
See. Yeah, I'm thinking we probably will double up a few things going forward, just because some things just kind of go together. But
between us girls, the way I look at it is that some of these albums really do deserve looking at by themselves. Some records, I think, maybe after we get out of this period, we can double up. But there's something magical about this whole period, I think. 72, 73, 74. There's just something
getting close
about
to the end of this. Yeah, we're getting real close to the end of this particular band. So,
but this band was top notch. Oh my God! George Duke, who also all in the band on these. Where's my notes? I don't want to miss somebody. Chester Thompson's on drums.
Yep.
George Duke on keyboards. And of course, you've got Frank doing guitar, lead and backing vocals, piano, synthesizer. Tom Fowler, who we lost earlier this year.
I don't think I heard that.
He passed away.
I don't think I heard about that. I might have.
He's passed away, but what, I was listening to this with headphones on, and one of the things, we know George Duke's absolutely brilliant. Chester Thompson played with Genesis and all that. We know how great he is. But man, Tom Fowler, we don't really talk about Tom, but man, when I'm listening to it with headphones, his bass lines just absolutely pop right out. Absolutely wonderful. Napoleon Murphy Brock, saxophone. Of course, Ruth Underwood's on here.
Was this Napoleon's? No, he was on Roxy. I think I mentioned that last time. That was his first album, I think, with the band. But yeah.
But so Ruth Underwood,
yeah.
We've talked about Ruth before on this series. How her marimba, her vibes, absolutely wonderful. And we do have Captain Beefheart on one track doing harmonica and lead vocals.
Yeah, as Bloodshot Rollin' Red.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the drummer that was on the previous albums.
Ainsley Dunbar?
No.
Wait a minute. We got to think about this for a second.
There was two drummers on the Roxy album, and he was on. Darn it! I'm drawing a blank because I didn't write it down.
But this is Chester's first album, right?
No, he was on Roxy as well. And he might have been on Overnight Sensation. But Ralph Humphreys is not on this album.
Okay.
where he and Chester were both on Roxy, and they may have also been on Apostrophe and Overnight Sensation. I don't remember for sure. We get our first appearance of Johnny Guitar Watson on a Zappa album, from what I remember, and Johnny shows up in other albums going down in the future as well. James Birdlegs Yeoman, he was a bass player, I believe. He plays a little bit on here too, so that should cover just about everybody that's on this album. He had said Captain Beefheart, he's playing harmonica on San Bernardino. We'll talk about that.
Well, I'm just curious, but the recording of this record, of course, this came out in January 75, so most of this happened in 74.
It said June 75, wasn't it?
Maybe. I don't know if this was recorded in 75 or 74. You never know with Frank, because a lot of this stuff he'll recycle. It could have been from another session, but when I listen to, I don't know, but when I listen to it though, everything seems like it all matches sound quality wise. I think that the recording is absolutely wonderful. The production is breathtaking. Whatever Frank was doing during this period,
knocking it out, man.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I had written down that it came out on June 25th of 75, but it was recorded from August 74 to April of 75. Okay.
Released June 75, but what I understand, it was recorded pretty much in January 75.
Yeah, he released a video back in the day. It was called Dub Room Special. I think there was another similar title called Token of My Extreme, and it was filmed. It was a lot of that was filmed at a KCET TV in Los Angeles, of a show they did, and some of that ended up on this album. At least parts of Inca Roads came from that show. We'll get to all that. But that's a very good video to watch. That stuff should all be on YouTube nowadays. So the Dub Room Special, that was stuff from that time period, and then there was some 80s performances too. I digress. This got 26 in Billboard.
Yeah, this was probably like one of his last highly charting albums. I haven't done any more research, but pretty much Frank's albums never really charted. But a lot of these records from this era seem to perform pretty well. 26 is, considering what Frank's up to, that's pretty good for Frank. All
right, so we always seem to talk about some of the formats. So I have the original CD here on Ryko.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
And so it's like, I sound like a broken record. The original CDs added reverb in almost all cases. Allegedly, this has a different mix of San Bernardino. I've never really compared the vinyl to this to really hear the difference. This also came out as a AU-20 gold disc. I don't know if you remember those.
I remember those.
And so that, along with the 2012 CD and the original vinyl, are supposedly the same.
Okay.
Close to being the same. And then in 95, Ryko apparently at some point switched from this version, which had the remix of San Bernardino and the reverb, back to the AU-20 version. But apparently nobody can tell the difference without listening to it. There's no marks that, codes on the disc that tell you which is which, apparently.
And that the gold CD is probably going to sound exactly the same as this CD. Just because it's on gold doesn't mean anything,
Yeah,
it may last longer
now.
Huh?
I wish I had some of those still now. They're worth some money.
I've got some. I got some old Fidelities, but I don't have any of the Rykos though. The gold Rykos, I don't have any of those.
I had the Hot Rats way back when. Apparently, there was a quad mix of this too that was advertised but never actually released. And we get another Cal Schenkel cover. It's a pretty cool cover, I think.
It's a great cover.
Like a sofa flying around in space, and there's like a hand and whatever. Got like don't know,
Mm-hmm.
astronomy type stuff on the back there. But yeah, Cal Shakel, he did some nice artwork. Sofa is we'll be talking about that in a little bit too. A couple of the songs are called Sofa.
And I dig them quite a bit. I love it.
So all right,
All right, go
let's
ahead.
see. I
Start
think I
in.
had mentioned. Let me see if I got any other things that I wanted to talk about. Um, no, that's all that. So now we can just get into the tracks, I guess.
Yeah, it starts off with Inca Roads. Long track, 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Um, Absolutely killer. This is one of those Frank Zappa songs or tracks that is really coveted. A lot of the Frank Zappa fans really think that Inca Roads is one of those top-notch tracks, and I can't argue with that. What's your thoughts on Inca Roads?
Um, my first note, possibly his best song.
Wow, well
Very,
then there you go.
and very complex. The lyrics are about the Nazca lines in Peru. If anybody knows what those are like these lines. They're like almost like roads or something that they don't know how they were built exactly. Um, but you got to hear this song because I had mentioned this. It was recorded at that KCETV two. Parts of it was recorded there.
Mm,
Um, the guitar solo came from the Helsinki show, which is a whole that is available, the whole show on the You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 2. Someday we might get to that.
well, the thing is, when I listen to that guitar solo, Frank has such a unique tonality. It sounds like a fuzz box going through a wah pedal or
Yeah.
something. It is definitely a fuzz box. Like you're thinking old school fuzz box. It's not overdrive through an amp. That's like a fuzz box. But it works because I kind of listen to it go, geez, Frank, what are you doing? But it works. I think it's a great solo. I
Yeah, it's considered one of his better solos, you know.
Mhm. But when I listen to it, it almost sounds like Frank, he's on a path, he starts his solo, but at any moment he could veer off and just, it just seems so, what do I want to say? How do I want to put it? It just seems so, it's not very thought out. I don't think he ever really thought out his solos. I think he just kind of went for it and whatever happened, happened.
Right.
But it just seems like at any time the solo could just veer off into outer space. But I do think this is, well, I obviously love it. I love the sound of it.
Well, so yeah, he was sort of famous for taking a song and then, like in this case, he had the song,
Mhm.
but he liked that guitar solo, I think, so much from Helsinki that he's able to splice them together. And he did a lot of that in his career. And someday we'll get to the You Can't Do or the Shut Up and Play Your Guitar series and guitar, or those are songs are really just guitar solos from these songs.
Mm.
And he just cuts out the beginning of the song and the end of the song. He just gives you the guitar solo. So yeah, he would just improvise his solos pretty much every night, and then ones he liked, he might reuse them on a guitar, instrumental album, or piece it into a
Well, the thing is, well, since you mentioned that, when I listen to it, I can't really tell that it's been taken out of another track.
it. Yeah, I mean, it's technically it's the same song,
Mhm.
but you don't say, oh, this is from a different. You don't hear, oh, that's a different show completely. It sounds
Yeah, you
completely
can't
different.
tell.
Yeah, you don't really notice that.
Mm-mm.
So anyway, um,
Great track. I'm just going to leave it
right.
at that. What a way to open up an album.
So like we had said, he took the track from the TV performance and the guitar solo, and then they went back to the studio and they added a lot of overdubs to it because there's a lot going on in this song. When it starts out with like an instrumental section and you're hearing some sound effects, almost like you're flying in this spaceship or something, because these they talked back then like these Nesca lines were maybe made by people from outer space or something. So you kind of get that feel. And George is singing the verses on this in kind of a falsetto. He's got this high falsetto voice, and it's real smooth sounding. And the verses are very melodic and beautiful to listen to. But the weird thing about it is he'll sing like a verse, and then all hell breaks loose for about 5-10 seconds, where everything just kind of stops and people start yelling and screaming and talking, and all these sound effects are going on. And then he'll go right back into the verse again, and it's nice and beautiful again. And then he'll stop it again. And they do that a few times in the song. But then after a couple verses, you get this real complex instrumental motif, which Frank would like to do, with the vibes and the keyboards. And then it breaks into that long guitar solo. I don't know, what's that, a 3-4 minute guitar solo? Probably.
At least.
And
but you know what?
Yeah.
The thing is, he breaks out into that guitar solo. Normally you would think, 3 or 4 minute guitar solo, you're sitting there rolling your eyes. For some reason it works, and I didn't roll my eyes once. I'm just getting into it. Like, man, Frank, let it rip. Then
you hear me, he's doing a lot of tap. He would do a real simple, where he would just kind of have his finger on one fret, and he'd use his pick just to go up and down.
Yeah.
Real legato type of, not legato, but a real staccato type thing. Nothing, but he did that quite a bit on that solo. So then after the solo, we get this real nice vocal part again, where they're just kind of da 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 da, and then you get that complex instrumental motif again. But then the song completely changes, because it was real 4/4 up till now, melodic, and then so they start singing the verses again, but with these weird meters. And it just kind of seems off, but they're doing this on purpose. So then we get a long instrumental section again, which is real crazy, because there's all this keyboard stuff going on, and the time changed until like 7/16, I believe. And so the song really starts going off the rails here from how it started. And like toward the end, they start singing. You get this insane marimba section, because Frank's always good at throwing those in.
Gotta have
and then
that.
the very ending of it, they start singing in like this bizarre opera style, and then it finally concludes. After almost 9 minutes. And yeah, I think it's one of his best songs, and I've been rambling on about it here.
Well,
but you got to hear it, people.
You got to hear it.
You just got to hear it.
Well, this is one of those records, I think, that he's definitely on a roll, and this record shows it. I think you described this record perfectly.
I sit here thinking, how the hell do you describe this? You just got to go listen to it.
You have to go listen to it.
It's hard to describe this.
One of the things that I came away with when I'm listening to this, because you know how much I love that original Mother stuff. I think if you're into that original Mother's band, you like Uncle Meat, you like We're Only in It for the Money, you like Absolutely Free. Yes, this is a different monster. It's more, the tracks on here are more, it's not so much a concept as opposed to just individual tracks. So, but I think that the songs are so strong and the production's so strong, and this band, you have to admit, Byron, this particular band is just smoking.
Yeah, sight, man.
And I think everything here, just it kind of falls into place. And if I'm just saying, I'm recommending this. If you like earlier Mothers, you might like this record, because I think it's really up there. The sound quality, as far as songwriting, this is just as strong as what came before, I think.
When I first got this album 40 years ago, I didn't like it as much. And it was because there wasn't There was really no juvenile humor to it.
Well, that's what's good
You
about it.
notice that there's none of that in this album, really. There's some humor, but it's not juvenile at all. It took me a while to come around to that because I was so used to it.
Yeah, but a lot of that early Mother stuff, I don't find that there's a lot of juvenile humor. Yeah, it's humorous. I mean, a lot of that earlier stuff, he's making political statements and talking about the hippies and they're dirty and, the whole scene, plastic this, plastic that. A lot of it's making more of a statement. This is just basically songs with humor, but there's nothing juvenile about it. It's well, for Frank, I think this is a very serious record. I think. I take it very seriously. I mean, you can have humor, but still.
Yeah,
This is pretty much jazz fusion, which we've already started before.
yeah. I mean, it's just another extension from the last 3 or 4 albums.
This builds upon what they had set in place before. There's nothing juvenile about it like the Blow and Eddie period, which I am not a big fan of. And I'm glad that period ended. And I really like this period. So, anyway, go ahead. You want to go to the next track? Yeah,
yes.
We could be on this forever.
Can't Afford No Shoes is the next track. It's fairly short, 2:38. I describe this as kind of a heavy blues rock tune.
Yeah, it's not a jazz track by any means.
This album has got a lot of bluesy R&B type rock to it, I think. But
this is a full tilt rocker, I think.
Yeah. What you've got in this is you've basically pretty much everybody singing this in a group vocal style. I kind of like they get into the chorus. It's like every line in the chorus, it seems like they're going up like a note, and it keeps getting higher and higher. Well, then it comes back down, then it ascends again. It's got kind of a cool way that he does that. And there's a good slide guitar solo in here too. Which I don't remember Frank doing much slide prior to this. I know he had Tony Duran on a couple earlier albums doing some slide, but
must be Frank. I don't know who else is doing it.
I didn't see anything in the credits. I looked to see if Tony Duran was on here. He's not. So I like that track a lot. So the next track is going to be Sofa number 1. We discussed how the cover has a sofa on it. This is an instrumental, and this is 2:39, so it's pretty short. It's kind of piano based, but you have all the other instruments in it too. A little bit of marimba. It's got a real beautiful melody to it. This song will come up in future albums once or twice, especially in some of the live things. And it's going to come up again later on side 2. But I really like it. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think it's absolutely beautiful. Short to the point. It's like I said, it's a very straightforward song. There's nothing. It's just a beautiful instrumental. It's not anything out to shock. It's just really basically, I think it just kind of segues, can't afford new shoes with, Pro Jamma, it just kind of segues those two together, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it was Zappa.
No,
really, I mean, if no one told you, you'd think, oh, this is really nice.
I mean, if you were listening to this record and you heard Inca Roads and No Shoes, you would sit here and go, what? Wait, what? But the thing is, you wouldn't think that all this works. But the way this record's set up, everything works. This record could play one track and it could take a left turn, and you're okay with it. Well, look at Inca Roads, how it took various turns during the song, and you're sitting there going, all right, I'm good. I'm in for the ride. There's something about this record that works,
Inca Roads is that's trademark Zappa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Sofa number 1, no,
great, but it just doesn't scream Zappa.
It doesn't scream Zappa, but it's kind of refreshing. It's kind of you're sitting there going, wow, this is kind of serious stuff. That's what I hear when
All right, so
Right
the
here.
last song on side one, if you have the vinyl, is Pajama People, 742. I'm going to describe this as an R&B track. The intro is real loose. We like it loose here on the Warehouse.
We're
Uh,
very loose.
Basically, just some piano and guitar. The guitar's playing some bluesy licks. They're just both kind of
You've
keeping
got
it
that
loose, playing that to start.
going
And
through
then
that fuzz box with the wall. It's got that sound. But
so
when
then,
when
yeah,
I'm listening to it, it just sounds so good though. Don't you think it sounds so great, this song, this track?
I he's got some great tone on this. Yeah, the guitar on this track really stands out.
Yeah.
um, Essentially the verses though, there's not a lot of guitar. There's a little bit of he's playing a lick here or there, kind of in the background, but it's mostly a piano, uh, bass, and drums. While Frank's singing the verses, you get a couple really I should in the chorus, you get Frank playing this really cool lick every time they sing through the chorus, but you get a real long 3 minute good guitar solo on this track as well,
Mm-hmm.
which stretches it out to 742. So it's a pretty long track. Uh,
But it
really good song.
works. It works. I'm
Yeah.
not sitting through here bored. I'm digging the guitar solo. It just brings you into the track. I wish I had something to bitch about this record, but I don't have anything to bitch about. I do have some comments later on, but so far, Byron, I am in. I am in.
So as we get to side two, the first track is Florentine Pogan, 5.5 minutes roughly. It's it starts out basically. So there's a couple main riffs to this song, and it starts out with uh, the verse riff, da 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 da, whatever.
Right.
And that it's the first time around, it's real heavy with it, kind of the bass and the guitar are pretty heavy, and they're kind of playing that melody. Um, the second time around, they add some sax and keys to give it a different feel. Then they break into a second melody a couple times, which I don't want to. There's not really a chorus to this. I don't know what you'd call the second melody though.
Middle section? I don't know.
Yeah, almost the verse. I mean, it's the verse where they talk about she was the daughter of a wealthy Florentine Pogan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that technically there really is a
I
chorus.
don't. I don't know what you'd call it exactly.
But Napoleon Murphy Brock is doing the lead singing on this, but he gets a lot of backing assistance at various points throughout the track. Except you get a lot of verses um, with that particular verse melody, but then kind of like with Inca Roads, there's all this randomness that gets thrown in after each verse to just kind of spice things up, and I really like that. Um, so between the verse part and then the whatever you call that other part,
I'm
there's
just
some
gonna
great
go middle
singing.
section. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it fades out with this Chester's gorilla. you know they do that live too, on the live version on that video I was talking about, and then they kind of go into a long jam, have that long jam on here. But this is a really good track.
But it
So
works. I
yeah.
can't find any faults in it. The only fault that I don't know if this is a fault, but I don't think it fits on the album. Evelyn, the Modified Dog. It's 1 minute and 5 seconds, but when I listen to it, it doesn't seem to fit the rest of the album. It's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's kind of silly,
If it was longer, I might say it detracts, but it doesn't really detract.
but it's kind of like a segue between tracks, kind of like the way Sofa number one is. It's a little bit of I don't want to say a distraction, but Evelyn, a Modified Dog seems a little bit more juvenile. It's okay. I'm not complaining about it. But after a while, you get about 30 seconds into the track and it starts kicking in. And that kind of rectifies it. That kind of brings up the quality. But just the way it starts out, I'm sitting there going, oh boy, here we go. But it never really, it's kind of silly, but it's not on the level of
It's Zappa though.
I know.
So if this
But
was
we've
on
got a
anybody
lot
else's
more.
album, you'd be like, "What the hell is this?" But with Zappa, I was like, "Yeah, it's Zappa. It's fine."
I know, but we've been getting a lot more serious type of material the last few records that we've talked about. This just seems a little bit more Flo and Eddie-ish to me. Now, you may hear it differently.
No, I don't think about them at all.
Well, see,
what I
still
wrote down
think
was
about it.
so on my notes. I say the song is it's a strange poem about a dog, and it's set to music.
It's only a minute and 5 seconds.
Yeah, and basically all you have really is some piano. It's got that. It's got that like silent movie type piano
Oh,
sound to it. They call it tack piano or
yeah,
something.
tack piano.
It's got that kind of a good piano sound to it. Basically, Frank is reciting this poem about a dog, and it's got kind of, he's reciting it with a melody,
Yeah.
whatever you call that in poem. I think there's a term for that. And the piano is basically just playing the notes that Frank's singing. Now, Frank does this later on some other albums in song The Dangerous Kitchen and the Jazz Discharge Party Hats, which someday we'll get to those albums that those are on.
Someday.
Except those were guitar. And I think back then, Frank would do that kind of thing. He'd be reciting, he'd be talking, and Steve Vai would transcribe the notes, and he would play the guitar notes on those tracks that I just mentioned. Frank also seemed to like to talk about dogs a lot at this period in his career. And he liked to talk about poodles. He talked about Fido on that Stinkfoot song. So he was bringing up dogs a lot in the 70s, but it's short. I can let it go. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all right. I just think it's like a detour from what the rest of the album sounds like. It's fine. I'm nitpicking. So San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. Yeah. Almost 6 minutes. I'm gonna say it's another R&B style song.
Well,
it's
you've
got a lot of
got
Zappa twists
got
to it.
Don doing the vocals. It's going to be R&B.
So yeah, this one, there's a lot of group vocals here on this track. And it's about a boy and a girl, a couple, and they live in San Bernardino, and it seems like maybe they don't have the greatest life. She lives in Mojave and in Winnebago. His name is whatever, and he's got a head like a potato. Bobby, that's his Bobby. And I was listening to this, and there's a section there's some slide guitar and some harmonica, and I was thinking to myself, God, this kind of sounds like a Beefheart song. And then I looked on the credits, or I read, and someone said, and they said, yeah, that's Captain Beefheart on harmonica. And I was like, fuck yeah, it sounds like a Beefheart song at times, because there's just this real weird rhythm going on and slide guitars all over the place, just like something you might hear off of Trout Mask Replica. And it's got that Beefheart style harmonica playing to it, and I was like, yeah, I got it. But we also get some Johnny Guitar Watson singing on the outro. And I like the sound of his voice. He sounds so good on this record.
Mm-hmm. You almost wish he did some more on it.
He's like, you'll spend the rest of your life in San Bernardino, and I do have a Johnny Guitar CD I found one day at the Goodwill. So
Goodwill, your best friend.
Yeah. But yeah, Johnny's going to make some more appearances in the future on Frank Records. So this is not the only time we'll hear from him. The next track is Andy. It's like 602. this song is wonderful, I think. I don't know how
I
you
think
feel.
it's one of the highlights.
Yeah. I wrote, and I don't know if I'm quite getting this quite right, but I said this song is combining rock, a little avant-garde, and prog. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true
Well,
or
I
not.
think there's a lot of prog elements on here. I might say maybe prog adjacent. I mean, think about it. You could tweak this album and some of these songs, and you could tweak it into prog. I just hear more jazz fusion on this record than anything.
So, is it just this? Okay, in this song, there's a lot of parts where it's just kind of like a dun, da da dun, da da dun, dun, where it's,
Mhm.
and all you're hearing
Syncopated.
is, and
Syncopated. Yeah.
yes, and what it sounded like to me was some King Crimson off like the first album, because they did a lot of that kind of syncopation
Mhm.
as well, especially with the snare drum. All you're hearing is some snare, like some bass and some guitar and some snare drum. And the snare didn't have quite the same sound. But I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, God, this is kind of King Crimson style back, on the first couple albums.
Right.
Um, there's like 7 different themes in this track that just kind of bounce from one to the other. And sometimes the theme has vocals accompanying it and sometimes not. We get at least 2 different guitar solos on this track. We get a little more Johnny Guitar Watson. I'd read a little bit about it, and they said the song was a little bit deeper because, it starts out with, "Is there anything good inside of you? Do I really want to know?" And
I'm not sure what they're talking about.
yes. So, he's like, "Is there anything good in you? I want to know, Annie Divine, whatever." I'm just going to bring it. Yeah, I really like this track.
I like it. For with all the left turns that it goes through, it's again, like I said before, it works. Um, I think Johnny Guitar Watson's great. I think everything. So far, I really have nothing to complain about. The only thing that I even had any complaint about was Evelyn, a modified dog. But I think San Bernardino, top notch. Glad to see Captain Beefheart on here doing his vocals. It's bluesy, but it's great. I want to pick something out, but I think you covered it pretty well. So I think it's one of the top tracks on the record.
Yep. All right, so it finishes up with sofa number 2. So this one's a little more interesting than sofa number 1. This one has vocals, same melody, of course. Really, that's the main difference. It's basically the same song, but with vocals and maybe a little more instrumentation to it.
So, what's your opinion? Do you appreciate the vocals, or would you rather just have like an
Well,
instrumental track?
what's interesting about this? Okay, this was and I've heard it done. It was originally performed in the Flo and Eddie period with the vocals. I don't know if you've ever heard their version of it or not.
No.
I think it might be on like Playground Psychotics or some other live stuff that they've released posthumously.
Okay.
So that's where this originally came from that period. It's a pretty cool song though, because like I said, there's the vocals, and George sings in his kind of falsetto voice again. It's really lovely. He'll sing a verse like that, but then Frank's going to come in and sing the next verse in German.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this real nice falsetto version of George singing, and then Frank comes in and he's not the greatest singer, but he's okay, and he's singing in this harsh German, language, and it's just like, wow, this is really giving me a lot of contrast. It's kind of keeping your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you necessarily need it, but
I see what you're saying now.
but there some of the German stuff later on is very operatic too, and sung more like as a choir. But Frank had a kind of thing with German language, I think, because in on Joe's Garage, that song "Stick It Out" has the vocals, or some of them are in German and then in English, and he had some things where some skits on some Flo and Eddie period stuff, where I think Lowell George is doing like these skits and he's talking with a German accent, and so yeah, I think he had a little bit of an infatuation with the German language.
That's fine.
It's a very harsh language. And when we were over there last year, it's just so different than other languages in Europe. It seems like that. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. And the very end of the song, you get a backwards vocal line, and we'll hear that again down the road on the Them or Us album on the song Jahazna, where that the vocals are all backwards on that. But I think that's Napoleon Murphy Brock in revert, played backwards. Very
Probably.
distinct.
I think so.
So anyway, that sums up the album.
I think it's a great way to sum it up. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of right turns, left turns on this record, but somehow the record comes together and it does seem like a cohesive piece. Do you see it like that? Like it really is a cohesive record. Not so much a collection of tracks, but a collection of tracks for an album, because it doesn't come off like they're just separate tracks. Because this is not really a conceptual piece like he's done before. It's just, these are just tracks, but he's able to compile them and make it work.
It just fits. Maybe the order works well, and I said there's really not a bad track on here. Yeah, you take Evelyn and Modified Dog, take it or leave it, but it's fine.
It's a minute.
It's short, and yeah. It's fine. If it was like it was 3-4 minutes, I'd be like, but it's only a minute. It works fine. More of a segue between the other two tracks.
So what would you, if you're going to rate this or recommend this record, what would you rate it out of 10?
For the last 10 years or so, I've probably said this is my favorite Zappa album, so I have to give it a 10. Wow. I cannot give it a 10.
You can give it a 10.
My favorite.
This is your favorite.
This is my favorite.
That's quite a statement.
At least that's what I've always told myself for the last 10 years. And like I said, I didn't care for this album when I first got it. It grew on me over the last 40 years or so.
Would I give it I've got to think about what I obviously think that We're Only in It for the Money is a 10. How far off is this from that? Well, Byron is pretty close. I'd be happy because that's a 10. Hell, that's even 11.
How did you like this compared to Overnight Sensation?
I like it about the same.
You gave that a 10.
I like it about the same.
You gave Apostrophe a 9.5. Roxy a 9.
Yeah, I like this time period. And I don't think that this takes anything away from it. I think it's just as strong. Just a little bit different. Do I like it compared to what we just... This is hard. I'd probably give this, because it does have Evelyn the Modified Dog on it, and I'm going... I think I'd be happy giving this a 9 out of 10. Nice. This could be a perfect record if it was tweaked a little bit more.
I don't know, man. It's pretty perfect.
Well, I'm only bringing it down for Evelyn, a Modified Dog. I mean, it's okay. I don't care, but it doesn't. You could have put Evelyn, a Modified Dog on We're Only in It for the Money, and I think it could have worked, but I don't think it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's juvenile, but it just doesn't seem to fit the record to me.
You
That's
gave it a
all.
9. Well,
I think I'd be happy
fine.
with a 9.
Fine. Well,
Is that okay?
that's fine. We'll add it to our database of scores, and
Add it to the
someday,
database.
someday we will maybe go over that and pick our top 10.
So there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do want to hear from you in the chat. What do you think of this record? You heard what we saw. I gave it a 9. Byron gave it a 10. One size fits all from 1975. So please leave a comment. Are we on track or are we not on track? We do want to hear from you. I do always read the comments. So what are you pulling off the wall? Yeah,
Next show.
next show. Look for that in November.
Bongo Fury with Zappa and Beefheart together.
Hmm.
Very interesting album. We'll
Well,
talk
that
about it.
pretty much sums it up. See, I haven't heard it yet because that's on the agenda.
Oh, really? You don't know that one at all,
No.
huh?
But that's what's fun about this exercise.
I know.
I don't want to know it. I really want to hear something and just be, whoa, listen to that, you know? So it's good. It's I'm discovering things. I like it. I just didn't think back in the day that I needed any more than the original Mother stuff because why would I need anything other than that?
You were
So
young.
anyway,
You didn't know better.
I know. I'm learning. It's a process. I'm learning. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. It was a fun discussion. I want to thank BM Boldt for coming on and talking more Zappa. We will be back next month for another installment. Please leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe for goodness sakes. And buy yourself a shirt. We have merch down below. We just have the Great Sardini shirt that just got put into the store. Thank you, DC Toontime. And I looked and see how many we sold 7 of them already.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how does the store normally do? I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
It's okay. But
I mean,
7
have
for
you
a new
sold like
shirt.
100 shirts? You think over the years?
I probably have sold over the couple years. I've probably sold 50 shirts, maybe 40, somewhere in there. I know 40 for sure, probably. Well, we just sold 7 Sardini
in like a day.
in a day.
Crazy.
Yeah, people like Sardini, I guess. But DC's going to work on some more designs, so we'll have more merch up there. The merch store needs help.
I think my wife had said you needed to keep it loose shirt.
Yeah, well, we're thinking about that. I'm waiting for DC to come up with something.
Right.
So anyway, check out the merch down below. Get yourself a Sardini shirt. Please like, subscribe if you haven't. Stay tuned for next month. Of course, Byron will be back. He'll be on multiple shows, so you can meet him out back after this show, and he'll sign autographs. So until then, keep it real, keep it clean, and we will see you on the next show. All right, everybody, have a good one.